Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Vic podcast with myself, Joe Thomas. And this evening, I'm joined by Caity Kirkley. We're here to do the Sunderland preview for the game, our last home game coming up on Saturday. We're going to be joined by Graham. He's going to come in from, I can't remember the actual name of the podcast, which is terrible of me. But yeah, Graham's going to come on and do it talking about Sunderland. And we're also going to have a bit of a chat about the appointment, the exciting news actually, of the appointment of Tom Cleverley being appointed the permanent head coach at Watford, obviously. Caity, obviously some exciting news buzzing around the club today. First of all, how are you, and are you excited by the news today?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Yeah, I'm really excited about the news with Cleverley. I think it's really good for him, and the reaction from even the players and all around the club seems that everyone else wanted this, which makes me even happier that I feel like there is a good vibe, and it will be nice going into the last home game with that news because I feel like it will lift everyone up slightly.
Yeah, I agree. It really is going to be an interesting summer now. We've got a permanent manager and seeing what he is going to bring in, not only coach-wise but player-wise as well. Obviously, we'll discuss it a bit more at the end of the pod. But we're if you want to bring Graham in, we'll have a bit of a chat about the game of the weekend up and coming. Hey, Graham, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Obviously, I know you said just before you came on you're a little bit tired, but how's things?
Tired, jet lagged as hell. Yeah, but I'm okay. I forgot that there was that football thing at the weekend, so hopefully I can remember what my team's all about and answer a few of your questions. But yeah, I'm all right. Hopefully I'll get through this without falling asleep. And if I do, just wake me up.
Just give you a nudge. Yeah, we will do. We'll jump straight in then. Obviously, the last time we played in October, we won. Sorry, you guys won 2-0. We obviously had a player sent off as well towards the end of the game. Tony Mowbray was in the dugout at that point. You've obviously changed managers a little bit since then. Mike Dodds has come in. Mick Bill then came in. Mike Dodds is back in. Kind of in a nutshell, since then, kind of what has happened in that 6-month period at Sunderland?
Everything and nothing. So I don't want to sort of rewrite history, I guess. Hindsight's a really good thing. Mowbray did a wonderful, wonderful job with us. He's perfect man for the squad that we had. But there was always sort of tension behind the scenes. I think, I don't know how far away people are of Sunderland's model. I think people are by the fact that a lot of the time you see our squad is like average age of 21.4 or something like that when we play, sometimes younger. We have easily the youngest squad in the league, and that's by design as opposed to by accident. So Mowbray had this team which was full of kids, basically, with a little bit of experience. Especially last season, we had Danny Bart, Alex Pritchard, Ross Stewart when he was fit. The spine of that team gives you like a few more. So I think we were maybe like 22, 23 average last year, but still very young. The model is sign players under the age of 24, develop them, sell them for a big fee to an extent, and then reinvest and keep getting better until you get promoted. The kind of problem that we had this season was we didn't really replace Ross Stewart or sign a striker. We didn't replace Ellis Sims, who we had last year in the interim and got recalled in the January. We signed 4 very much young and untested strikers. None of them have worked at all. One of them has 1 goal. One of them has 2 goals. The other one's at Hibs playing for their academy team. And the other one, who is the other one? Oh, yeah, the other one hasn't scored him here at all. And it was quite clear there was tensions between Mowbray. He would sometimes come out and say that he didn't feel he had the tools to kind of do what he thought he could do. And then the fans would agree with that, to be honest. But there was games where we would absolutely dominate and not score. And then there was other games where towards the end of Mowbray, he won 2 games in 9. So we weren't playing great. And a lot of the games we would dominate but not score. And we did turn it the way we played. So me, I wasn't the voice of something, but I was someone who went, has he hit a ceiling? Do we need to move on to this, like a European manager, someone who's like going to these kids and like develop these young French boys that we've got, this young Ukrainian boy up front. So I thought maybe we would change it. But when he got sacked, it was a bit of a surprise because we drew one at Millwall. It wasn't a great performance, but we were still playing relatively nice football, but you could tell the tension was too much. Now, if you'd said to me, do you want Mowbray sacked for Michael Beale, that would have been a very different conversation because Michael Beale is like, well, it was hell on earth. And it killed our season. I could go so much further into it. The point that Beale just had no rhyme or reason behind it. He wasn't as experienced as Mowbray. He was the opposite to what Mowbray was. Mowbray was a man from sort of around the region, he's from Teesside, from Middlesbrough, so he understood all of the North East clubs. He was very much standard that everyone liked. Michael Beale was like the uncle at the party that no one really liked and nobody wanted to come to. He said we didn't like him because he was a Cockney. I think Kevin Phillips might tell you a little bit different. He's from Hitchin. Our captain is Luke O'Nien. He's from down south. We like him too. Just really stupid statements. A really, really poor team that went from being young, exciting, to turgid. I could go deeper into it, but yeah, the day we sacked Mowbray and replaced him with Michael Beale really derailed our season, and the scene sense by getting rid of Beale after 12 games, that made total sense. And then they gave it to Mike Dodds, and they said in the statement that the mission was to finish as high up the table as possible. And that kind of tells you everything about what they expected for the rest of the season. So our season, it felt like it ended in February. We've won 2-13 under Mike Dodds. One of them was against 10 men. We're just getting worse by the day. And if I'm honest with you, we just want the season to end. Which if you'd asked me that this time last year, I would say I never want the season to end. So it's gone as not as south as it could have gone because we could have got relegated. We could have been so bad we never won a game and got relegated. We're comfortably mid-table, comfortably safe. But it's just not worked this season and things need to change in the summer. Summer's really big, really, really big.
Yeah, Diallo's a big miss as well for you, isn't he? He was in the side last year on loan from United, wasn't he? A real exciting talent. And obviously I know there was rumours. Sorry, Katie, I know you were going to jump in. I've just kind of gone rogue a little bit.
No, don't worry.
Obviously I know there was rumours that you were trying to get him back as well for another season, but United wanted to obviously keep him. It's a shame really because he's not really been used much at United, but in the times that he has, obviously he scored the most important goal of their season probably in that FA Cup game against Liverpool, and he's had bit part appearances obviously as well, but for you guys he was phenomenal, wasn't he?
Oh, outstanding. Like I'm 37, 38 this year, so I've supported Sunderland the best part of 33 years in terms of going to games, and he would get my best 11 of all time, and there's some really good players in that. A huge miss, but also, what Sunderland's team has missed this season is players in key positions. We don't have a good defensive midfielder. We have players that can play there, but can't play there very well. Corey Evans has been injured since last January, just made his comeback at the weekend. He's 34, vastly missed his ability and his experience in the middle. We don't have a centre forward. Last year we had Ellis Sims and we had Ross Stewart. We don't have anything like that. And then if you take out Diallo out of that as well, who can score your goals out of absolutely nothing. And I mean literally nothing, like Preston game last year, which secured the playoffs for us. We were all over Preston, but it didn't look like we scored. We might have not scored because we didn't have a striker then either, really. But Diallo just smacks in a 35-yarder and the attitude changes and then you're 3-0 up in a heartbeat. So we're missing big players, and the recruitment, which I'm sure we'll get onto, has been really poor this term. Where you can maybe credit what they brought in last year with Diallo, it's been like the polar opposite this year. Players in problem positions haven't been replaced, and strikers haven't been signed, and the experience is completely lacking. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really.
Yeah, so you guys are coming into the game on Saturday just 3 points above us with 56 points, and you're sat in 13th. Were the expectations set for playoffs, or what were the expectations going into this season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're not going forwards, or even if you're staying the same, you're going backwards, aren't you? It's funny, I spoke to a Watford fan earlier this morning, and they were saying like maybe a Sunderland season was the other way around. If we'd finished 13th comfortably and it was like a nothing end of the season like this one, and then we built and gone 6th, then maybe we'd view it differently. But I I think, again, without being too simplistic, I think this is probably the same for every football club. But the reason we've gone backwards is the recruitment's just been not good enough. There was some not great signings last year, but there was a lot of good ones. Dennis Serkin, who's sadly always injured, was a great signing a couple of years ago in League One. He got even better last year. Trey Hume was exactly the same, but the likes of Diallo, Ross Stewart when he was fit. I mean, I think if you took out Ross Stewart's goals, and Ross Stewart only played about 2 months of the season, there's 10 goals he scored last season. That's never been replaced, even though we signed 4 strikers. None of them are anywhere near ready for this league. We brought a boy over from Ukraine who's 25, but he scored twice. He tries really hard, but I don't know if he's ever going to score the goals Ross Stewart scored in. I think Ross Stewart scored 10 and 11, so that says a lot. Mason Burstow might be one of the worst strikers I've ever seen in my life. We brought him on loan from Chelsea. Fair play to the boy. I hope he goes on to have a great career, but his time at Sunderland's never going to be remembered. I don't know what he offers. He's not particularly bad. He just doesn't exist. He's just there. Hamir looks like, well, just not ready. Just as raw as sticks. And then my end is away on loan to Hibs to get game time, but only plays in their academy team. So that kind of sums up a lot. So if you add Ross Stewart's goals that haven't been replaced despite bringing in 4 players, you've then got 10 goals that you need to replace. We've lost 8 from that. And bear in mind, Ross Stewart only played 10 games. Diallo scored 14. That has not been replaced. Jack Clark stepped up a little bit. I think he's on 17, 18 this season. I can't complain about Clarkie's contribution, but yeah, the expectation was higher based on last season. I think if we'd finished 6th again, or even 7th or 8th, you would have kind of gone, okay, fair enough. But to finish 13th is, I don't want to say it's well below expectations, but if you're asking at the start of the season, is that well below expectations? 100%, because it's far away from the playoffs. But I think now we're at the second last game of the season. I can sit back and I can look at what we recruited and what we've done during the season, add in the manager upheaval. Maybe that's kind of where we deserve to be, but the recruitment's killed us this season, and then add in the manager stuff and some off the field stuff with boardroom. I would say we are probably the 13th best side in the league, but on current form, perhaps even worse. It's a good job we got the wins when we did at the start.
Yeah. Obviously, away from home this season, you've picked up 24 points from 22 games. How do you see yourselves setting yourself up for the game on Saturday?
We're really boring. Incredibly boring. Like last season, we were like, it's the best football I've seen Sunderland play. I'm not saying it's the best team we've ever had, because it's not. I was there when Phillips and Quinn, and that was brilliant, and it was a division above. But in terms of the football we were playing, it was wonderful one-touch passing. I could show you probably about 4 goals that we scored last season that were brilliant. The team all seemed to click. It felt like Tony Mowbray had said to them, look, boys, I'm not going to set you up in any way. Just go and enjoy yourself. And when you've got young, vibrant, exciting, sort of younger kids who are confident, you get good football. In terms of this season, I mean, Beale made us too narrow and boring. There was problem positions, but at the same time, the football got worse. So we went from being a team that dominated games that couldn't score to a team that didn't dominate games and couldn't score, and the defence got worse. Under Mike Dodds, look, it's been really poor. He come out and said it himself. Like he said on Saturday that he felt bored watching the team. He said it twice in his post-match interview. At the moment, we set up like a team who's absolutely terrified to get beat, and I think that comes from the manager. We don't really have the ability to win a game because we don't have a striker or a Diallo that can come off the pitch or come off the bench, or anyone like that can sort of bring a moment of magic. You've got Jack Clark, but look, the boy's going to get sold in the summer. I don't think his heart's not in it, far from that. But like, your left winger shouldn't be your match winner every single week. I think we'll probably set up to try and get a 0-0 draw, not get beat. Because that's the way we've set up pretty much since Mike Dodds took interim charge, and it depresses me a lot to say that, but we are very defensive with no attacking. Like, we never looked like scoring recently. I think we scored 1 goal in the last 4 games, and the game before that we got beat 5-1, so it was a consolation. Like, we set up not to get beat.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because obviously, like you say, Clark's obviously done really well this year. Katie's obviously going to ask a question a bit about Clark. You mentioned he might get sold, but do you think if Clark does go in the summer, are you concerned that you won't replace again? And obviously with the squad that you've got at the moment, is there a worry that relegation might come into Sunderland fans' minds next year? I don't think you're as bad as some of them teams down at the bottom now. And obviously you see what teams are coming up. Probably it looks like it is going to be Derby, isn't it, that's coming up with Portsmouth. Do you think you're worse than those teams that are coming up?
I think momentum's a really strange thing, isn't it? You look at our season last season and kind of the perfect storm. We started off really well in the first 4 games under Alex Neil, and Tony Mowbray comes in and starts really well, and the signings work and the recruitment's good, and make a real impact. And we drove on all the way to the playoffs. And then you get the summer and you go, could we go for automatic? Maybe, potentially. Like, would playoffs be good enough? X, Y, and Z. It's the opposite swing with this year. I think, am I concerned that we won't do the right thing in the summer? I think if we continue with this model of signing kids under the age of 24 and we literally bring in no experience, like at all, and we need a lot. We need a good 4 players that are over the age of 24 that have championship experience and are good championship players, 27, 28. Yeah, I think we will really struggle because we've got some really good young talented players. I'm a big fan of Joe Bellingham. I think he's got a lot. Look, he's not his brother, but who is? I wish he was. And if he's anywhere near like that, yeah, we'll win the league next season, but he's not. He's a very talented player. I think we'll go on and play in the Premier League that way. He's just turned 18, playing every single game, a variety of different positions. Now, he's one of my players around that age. When players get beat every single week, they turn to go after this. No experience on the pitch, looking at what the hell do I do? Like last year, when times were hard, you had that ball players you couldn't rely on. Our more experienced players are and 21, 22, who's played 100 games, and Dan Bauer, who's his 3rd or 4th season in your football, and then you've got to go 9 to 20. But you've got too much experience. They should still be learning. So for me, if the season, I think what's happened in the second part, at the point it's still stable. You need to change what you do. The principles in last summer was we're going to go with this.
Oh.
Have we lost him?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Technical issues.
It was bad through the question there. Apologies. We'll just kind of go rogue.
Oh, he's back.
He's back, yeah. He's back.
Don't know what happened there. Apparently, my internet also has jet lag.
It was quite laggy.
It was laggy there, yeah.
Oh, no. But yeah, to kind of answer the question, yeah. If they change the recruitment, yeah, it's not going to be great. And there would be a genuine fear of relegation. Hopefully, they'll fix it in the summer. But I think every Sunderland fan is waiting for the season to end. I'll give you a kind of insight into how Sunderland fans feel at the moment. I asked, what we should do within the summer, like what kind of shows would you like from our podcast? And a lot of those comments were, can we just have 2.5 months off? And it wasn't. I hope it's not in the strength of my podcast, but I think people just need time off. It's like, look, if someone said to me, I haven't renewed for next year, I'm not going to be one of those fans that says, oh, you're not loyal, you suck. The noise from at the top has not been great this season off the field. On the field, the recruitment's been poor. And if they don't change it in the summer, then we're in trouble, 100%.
I think it's funny because a lot of your issues, like Watford, have the same issues. What you're saying is very similar to the situation that we're in. I think our position has really been covered by the Cleverley coming in now, that we're not ending on such a sour note. But I really think if you take away that, we would be in the exact same position. And so we kind of understand where you're coming from. But you mentioned Jack Clark, and he is your top goal scorer. How key has he been for you this season? And do you think you'll actually be able to keep a hold of him for next season? Or do you see him being sold and using the money to reinvest?
I'll answer the second question first because that'll be the easiest. No, he won't stay. Yes, we will sell him. I hope it's for a good amount. I think Lazio was sniffing around in the summer. And look, I live in Glasgow. I love Glasgow, and I love my home city of Sunderland. But if you offered me a chance to live in Rome and lots of money, I'm going to Rome. So even if, we reject a bid, I might be knocking on the door saying, I kind of want to go to Rome. And obviously this Premier League team's going to be looking at him as well. He's been massive this season. He's a really good player. It's a really interesting sort of growth that he's had, because when we signed one loan in League One, I'll be honest, we were not that sure. And then he sort of played quite well in the playoffs coming off the bench. But as soon as he stepped into the Championship, he scored on the opening day of the season against Coventry, and he's just gone from strength to strength. I think you probably have to give him even more credit this season for the goals that he scored, because last year, a lot of the goals that he got came from Diallo and Roberts kind of doing what they do on the right hand side, and then being able to leave Jack Clarke wide open. This year, people just go, Sunderland's right-hand side's got no Diallo and Roberts can't hit a Bondo with a banjo. So let's just concentrate on Jack Clarke. And he's still managed to score more goals. To be fair to the boy, he's a Premier League player in waiting. He is 23, 24. He's had a near miss with... he's had a experience with Spurs where he went very young and didn't do very well, or probably not ready. He's had to go back through the divisions and sort of learn to play week in, week out and get his confidence back. I would have absolutely no qualms with Jack Clarke himself if he was to move in the summer, because I think he deserves it. But it's a huge hole to fill. And I personally think they will try and use a boy that we signed in January for I don't know what fee it was, from Standard Liège. Used to play for Spurs, a lad called Romain Mundle, who looks really raw. Sunderland fans you might not, but Sunderland fans might remember a player called David Bellion. He looks exactly like him in the way that he plays. Very, very, very raw, but very fast. Nowhere near as good as Jack Clarke. And my big concern is that they might use him as a replacement. And if you use him as a replacement, then take Jack Clarke's goals out of this season, where are we at?
Yeah.
So he'll go, but we need to make sure we replace him and also fix the other issues.
Yeah. Are there any rumours over price or club destination if he does go?
Burnley have been interested for a long time, but seem to like to offer silly fees like 7 million. I mean, that wouldn't even buy his left leg, to be honest. And he plays with his right. So Lazio interested, but I think if I remember correctly, they bid 15 million. So the summer's naturally probably somewhere you're going to be able to negotiate a bit more. I think in January, it's a case of we still had a chance of playoffs in January. So I don't think the plan was to sell him, because if you get the Premier League, and then it's just not worth the risk, really. I would think 15 million, but I think if you base the fact that Alex Scott went for 25 million last year to Bournemouth, I think it was, from Bristol City, and he's got nowhere near the goal contributions. He's nowhere near the finished product. Jack Clarke's starting to get there to the player he should be, and we owe, I think, Spurs a percentage of that as well. He'll go for too cheap, but he's going to go. So I think a lot of Sunderland fans have just accepted that, and I hope he goes on to do really well, unless he goes to Saudi Arabia, that team that plays 8 miles up the road from us. So,
obviously, we mentioned briefly Joe Bellingham earlier on. How do you feel that he's been getting on at Sunderland? Obviously, there was kind of whispers of or people saying when he went to Sunderland initially that he might actually turn out to be better than Jude. Have you seen signs of that, and do you think he could be?
No, but that's because I think Jude Bellingham is the best player in the world on current form, and I think he's going to get better, which is wonderful news if you're an England fan like myself. But Job's really good, and I think maybe I'm different. There's a lot of Sunderland fans that are not too sure on him, and Job is kind of a symptom of... He's the poster boy of Sunderland's model of signing young players and developing them, which means when the model is not working, which it's not, for all the things I've sort of repeated probably numerous times before my internet decided to make me shut up itself and signed me off. But because Bellingham is that poster boy, that model, that isn't working, I think sometimes, some Sunderland fans can go, well, why are we chucking all our eggs into this basket? I think I've seen a stat today that he's played the third most amount of minutes for players under the age of 19 in the world, or maybe Europe.
Wow.
And he plays in 3 different positions. He can play defensive midfield, he can play in the 8, he can play in the 10, and he can play up front, all with varying degrees of success. But he's definitely got it. I think he'll become a Premier League player. He's not going to be anywhere near his brother. Just because his brother is just phenomenal. Like, his brother is, I don't know if he's human. He's so good. Job will be a good player. I think he's got 7 or 9 goals, something like that. He's played in various different positions. There's points when he's looked really burnt out because he's played far too much football. But he'll be a real asset to us. But I would like to see him rested a little bit more to give him a bit more of a chance. And he's probably got a lot going against him because he's the poster boy of this model, which a lot of Sunderland fans are now going, this is not going to work. Not everyone. Some still like the idea of it. But the proof's in the pudding. We're 13th and we're finishing the season with 2 wins and 13 at the minute. So the model to me doesn't work and it needs altering. Doesn't need overhauling. It just needs altering a little bit. And I think Job probably being the poster boy of that will hinder him in some ways. But if you ask my own personal opinion, I think he's a fabulous player that will only get better. But anywhere near his brother, I don't even think he'll get close to that stratosphere.
Do you think he'll end up at Dortmund?
There was interest apparently in January, and it would be an interesting move if he did. Someone said those scouts from Real Madrid coming. I am assuming they went back pretty fast to Madrid, but no offense to Job. I just think he's just, and again, it's no detriment to Job at all. I think his brother's a phenomenal football player. I cannot believe he's 20-year-old. I've seen him live twice. I've seen him play for Dortmund, seen him play for England. And both times he was far and wide the best player on the pitch. I don't think Job's quite in that stratosphere, but he'll be a very good Premier League player, I think, in time, but not yet.
Is he quite a key player for you? Can you see them building a team around him? I mean, is he looking to leave? Can you see him being there for a couple more years? Is it something that you could build around?
I think he'd be very silly to leave at this moment in his career because I don't think he's had a phenomenal season. I think he's had a good season. I think his numbers are very good. I think he will be key in time, but I really think it would help him if he could flourish around more experienced players.
Yeah.
He's learning from fellow kids at the moment. And to be fair to him, sometimes he does stick his chest out and he does try and lead the team, but I'd love to see him have, a really good number 8 next to him. And I personally think he's going to be better in the 10 because he knows where the net is. At the minute, he's sort of playing up front for us. He weirdly looks quite good deep as well. We don't even know what his position is at the moment. And that's difficult to build a team around him. I'd like to see some more experience alongside of him. And I think he will get better. But there's definitely things he needs to improve on. So I think they will try and build the team around him, to be honest, based on the model, but that would make me disappointed. I don't want to build a team around Job. I want to build a team around a good 27-year-old player that Job can flourish next to. But whether that happens, it depends what happens in the summer. You can tell I want them to change the model a bit, can't you, in the summer?
Yeah.
Made that obvious, but I don't want them to overhaul it. I like the idea of buying a Job Bellingham and developing him and making him better like we have with Jack Clark. But I want to see someone next to those players to help them and guide them through the difficult times. And I think that's the same at any club, I think.
So looking forward to the weekend, where do you think Watford will struggle? Like, where do you think Sunderland can really hurt us, where your strengths will lie?
It sounds like really obvious and really, it's probably, you probably want a longer answer to this, but we play to not get beat. If we win, it'll be Jack Clark playing well. And like, if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have went, well, you've got Diallo and Roberts on the right-hand side playing really well. You've got Ross Stewart is playing really, really well up front and can score goals. And you've got this lad called Jack Clark who can also chip in with some goals. And you've got Alex Pritchard and the number 10 who can do quite well. Now I'm just saying, well, if Jack Clark plays well, we might win. And it's not to say the other players are not good. Like, they are good players there. But the way that they've been set up by the interim manager is don't get beat. Which is really disappointing. And I think we'll go and we'll probably try and kill the game, ensure you don't score. I've seen you've had quite a few 0-0, so we might succeed in that and then hopefully get something on the break. But if Sunderland were to win on Saturday, my guess would be, unless we totally change what we've been doing in the past few weeks. You'll not score, we'll be relatively solid but boring at the back, and Jack Clark might get a goal. But I honestly see it being a 0-0. I think both teams obviously look like they can't score at the moment. We feel like we don't want to score, but when Jack Clark's on the pitch, there's always a chance of a goal somewhere. But I think it might be a really boring game. The interim manager seems terrified to get beat.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you say, it's Watford have had a few 0-0s lately. We're not playing the best going forward. At the moment, we're pretty solid at the back. Where do you think, like Watford, if we are going to hurt Sunderland this weekend, where do you think we're going to get most joy from?
Probably quite a few areas, to be honest. We're not great on set pieces. Like that's been a thing like for a while. We really struggle. The goal we conceded, we got beat 5-1 off Blackburn a few weeks ago, but the 2 games, I think it was before that, and the 2 games after that, we did keep a clean sheet. We were incredibly boring, like useless, like so boring to watch, switching off. But we did get a draw out of it, I guess. When you look at the game on Saturday, I think if you score, I don't see how we get back into it. We did beat West Brom 1-0, but they were down 10 men, and we scored from a corner. But the goal that we conceded on Saturday came from basically them hitting us on the break, putting a cross in, and then just not getting there in time. We just look like a team that wants a season to end. I think if you show up and want to impress your new manager, you're going to be absolutely fine. And if you can hear my cat meowing in the background, by the way, that is a cat for the record. He's very sad that I'm on a podcast. He's annoyed. He seems to do this quite a bit. Which, to be fair, so am I. I'm mad about chatting about Sunderland as well. But there we go.
If it's not Mike's cat, Katie.
Yeah.
I love him, but he just loves to cry when I'm on a podcast. It's like he takes the attention taken away from him. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think you will probably win on Saturday because you have a slight more to play for because you've got a new manager. You want to impress him.
Yeah.
And, he's probably only going to be there until September. Going by Watford's.
Yeah, I joked October, November earlier on in another chat that I'm in. So. Yeah, who knows?
Don't say that.
No, listen,
I hope not for your sake.
Yeah, well, we would like us. I mean, you've had loads of managers, haven't you, over the last few years? I mean, everyone always talks about Watford and changing managers, but if you kind of look at some other clubs around the country, Sunderland are one that I do kind of always say, they do probably go through sometimes 2-3 managers every few years. So
I've done this season. I think if you look at last season, we changed managers, and even when we get a manager that we kind of like and feel like they might do well and we kind of fall in love with, they decide they want to go to Stoke. I mean, what kind of luck do you have? Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't believe I was that utterly gobsmacked me, by the way. I still can't genuinely get over the fact that Neil went to Stoke City and what a bloody crap job he did there.
That worked out well.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you got any memories of playing Watford? Any fixtures? Any good memories? Bad memories?
Yeah, you know what? Last season was a really good memory. It's never worked for him, and he's kind of maybe one of the poster boys for like the poor recruitment we've done over the past 18 months. But we went to Watford last year when you'd just been relegated, and I think at the time you were looking at Watford as a team that were. I think you were 5th, 6th or something. I'm sure Rob Edwards was in charge at the point. So it was like before the first second of the season that you had. And we thought, if we get beat, but show up, play well. At that time, Ellis Sims had got injured, as had Ross Stewart. So we had no strikers. And that was kind of by injuries that season, as opposed to like by design this season. And we got that 2-2 draw, and Jewison Benete scored right at the end. And he's this young boy come from Costa Rica, didn't speak a word of English. And at the time, you're like, wow, this Costa Rican guy scored. He's going to be amazing. And the away end went mental. And it felt like a real sort of a real good moment in our season where we started to believe that these young kids might do well. And you know what? Last season, they really did. Like they went on and they were fantastic last season. And the Watford away game was one of those memories. He takes his shirt off, he runs to the fans, he's like pointing at the name on his shirt. He hasn't scored since, but, and he's now on loan in Greece. But at the time, it felt amazing. And it was one of those really good moments of the season. Sort of outside of that, with Watford, when I think of Watford, I just think of the fact that you gave us Kevin Phillips for 350,000, and God, I love you for doing that. God, I love you for doing that, because he's God. He was amazing. He made my childhood so much easier. Like
that was heartbreaking. I mean, I was a child then myself, and he was. I remember we signed him from Baldock Town for £10,000 in 93, 94. And I remember watching him as a youngster, and I mean, he was just unreal. Like, some of the things he could do with a football at a young age was just phenomenal. And then, unfortunately, I remember he broke his leg, and was out for a long period of time. And he came back, and he had a good spell. And it was one of those, like Watford were back in the day. We were offered what was considered a huge sum of money, and it was one of those: do we say no, or do we just cash in and let him go? And when he was gone, I was like, oh, this is gutting.
The rest is history.
That season, as you mentioned earlier, with Phillips and Quinn, was just phenomenal. Obviously, Phillips won the Golden Boot, didn't he, that year in the Premier League?
I was 11, I think. But honestly, like the best striker that I've ever had in my lifetime. And whenever someone mentions Watford, I just think 350,000. Wow. Which is just mad, but you'd never get a bargain like that these days. If someone scored, I don't know what, 2 goals, you're going to be paying like 7 million by these days standards. But Jewison Bennett is equaliser, which made us think everything was going to be brilliant. Nothing was going to be bad ever again, and we were going to storm the championship with these sort of Tony Mowbray's teenage wonder kids. And the fact you give us Kevin Phillips for 350,000 are my standout memories of Watford, which I don't know if that's a good thing for you guys, but here we are.
Are you going to the game at the weekend?
I would rather paint my walls and watch them dry. Because I am a loyal fan, but not quite that loyal. I'm not, no, but I do have some friends who are going down, and I'm going to question their sanity when they come back. But I'll let them enjoy the weekend first. Is it a sold out away end? Probably. No one else. I think we sold out West Brom the other week, which made me just think, what are you doing? But that's Sunderland. Like, I'm taking the mick and stuff like that. We come from a region which, it sounds very stereotypical, and maybe I am stereotyping a little bit, but Sunderland is the number one thing, and it always will be the number one thing. And if you don't have Sunderland on the weekend, what do you have? So in many ways, some people, if they're lucky enough to have the money to go to every game, will go to it. And some people spend their last penny on going to do it, and fair play to them. They deserve. People who go to Watford away, for example, this weekend, deserve the world, a medal, lots of love, cuddles, and every drink bought, because they are phenomenal fans that are kind of in many ways, the definition of supporter. I'm not one of those people. No, I will be in the house doing nothing in my underpants, most likely.
And just lastly, a last question. What do you think the score prediction is going to be?
You know what? On my show, I said 0-0. And then the more I think about it, I'm thinking, nah, we're going to get beat. I think if Cleverley hadn't been appointed permanently, it would have been a 0-0 and a really boring game with like 2 shots on target in the whole entire game, and nothing to write home about. But you've appointed a new manager. You haven't won at home since November, is that right?
Yeah, something
like that. I mean,
equal a record from 2 years ago, 13. If we don't win, it'll be 13 without a win at home, and then obviously rolling into next season. And if we don't win, then that'll be a club record. So,
well, if you want to break that, do you know the team that you want to play? Sunderland. So I think you'll win 1-0. If you score first, you've won it, because we've got nothing up front. And look, if we're completely honest, from a Sunderland perspective, outside of pride, does anyone care? Probably not. So I think you'll probably nick it 1-0, because I know you're not doing that well up front at the moment yourselves, but I can't see your score, and you've got a little bit more to play for. You are at home. Your fans will be more up for it, because they'll want to see Cleverley do well, and you'll want that home win before the season ends. So you don't have the record. We're not playing well. The confidence isn't great, and we'll probably set up not to get beat. So when you score, we'll probably attack you a bit, forget how to score like we have done the past few weeks, and then you win 1-0, and we just pray that the season ends very soon. Could have asked me on last year. I would have been much more positive last year. I would have been like, I'm so excited for the weekend. Yeah, of course I would. I'm like, but that's just the way the season is. And look, sometimes as a Sunderland fan, I don't think in my memory, certainly not the past decade, we've had nothing to worry about, both promotion or relegation at any point at this point in the season. So we've been crying out for a boring season for a long time. Now we've got one, I guess, that's kind of a positive. There's no fear of relegation. There's no fear of promotion. We're just stuck in 13th, smack bang in the middle, and we're probably the end of the season quite meekly, which I'm okay with. I'm happy to get beat 7-0 the next two games if they sort out the recruitment in the summer, because that's what matters mainly. These games have no bearing on it. So I think 1-0. I think 1-0.
Yeah, well, brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Obviously, I know I know you said you were jet lagged, so yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to come on. And usually we would say good luck, obviously, for the rest of the season. I know there's only 2 games left, but I hope I hope you have a good summer, obviously recruiting wise, as you said, and it'll be good to compete with you guys next season, and hopefully we'll both be fighting for the playoff.
Fingers crossed. Or relegation. You never know. One or the other.
Yeah.
Relegation.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much for coming on, and take care. Hopefully talk to you next season.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers. Take care. Brilliant. Well, that was obviously Graham taking the time to come on there from the Sunderland podcast. It was great of him to take the time. Katie, let's have a little chat about Tom Cleverley before we wrap up. Obviously, you were the first to get in on the chat earlier. You saw the montage go up, and I quickly rushed onto Instagram Twitter, you said at the time, to see what had been posted, and saw the montage that was posted. And as I said, it gave me goosebumps a little bit. It was quite an exciting little post that Watford put out. Obviously, we've got him now on a permanent position. I didn't see, I'll be honest, I've not actually read the article too much. Did it say how long they've given him?
No, because I read the article that they posted on the app, and there actually wasn't anything about how long the deal was. So maybe I think they'll probably release a bit more information soon, but at the moment, no, they haven't.
I'd probably be inclined to think then, for the time being, that knowing what Gino's like, is they'll probably give him a season like they did with Val. I think it was a year he got initially, wasn't it? And then in October they gave him that new deal, didn't they? Extending it. So they'll probably look and see where he's at in October, and it'll be interesting to see. Interesting to see kind of what happens there, but yeah, obviously the video was quite interesting, because obviously we've heard the players talking about Cleverley and how much they want to play for him, and how excited they are by what he brings to the training ground. Obviously there was clips of what people were saying about him. The players genuinely seem like they want to do well for him, don't they? And it seems like there's a real togetherness at the moment among the squad, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think Cleverley played with some of these people, and they're probably friends. Like, he says, "Oh, I don't make them call me Gaffer; they call me Tom." Like, there's a level of professionalism, but not too much that it's like weird. Like, I feel like they probably all get on, and I think Cleverley is. I was reading that BBC article that you popped in the chat yesterday. About how he was talking about his style of play, and how nowadays you don't really use fear to get through to the players, because they don't really care about fear now. And he says, well, I just want to help the players. I just want to make them better every day. And I think that's really good for him, because I feel like that's a lot more approachable as a manager. Like, they probably see him as someone like a better coach, and not someone who's telling them what to do. He just helps them. He might even say, like, okay, what do you think you should work on, or what do you think went well? And then he helps them, improve, and can offer advice when needed. So it's obvious that they all really care about him. And I saw Dennis posted on his Instagram story, like, reposted him with like heart eye emojis, which could even suggest that Cleverley might push for Dennis to stay next season as well. Like, you never really know. And Cleverley has talked in his interviews after the games, the last couple of games. He's always said, next season, we want to give the fans more. We want to push for promotion. I want to take this club forward. Like, he talks about the club in a future way, and it's not like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he does, and I think it's quite refreshing. Like, listening to him in interviews, he's great. Like, he's really great to listen to, and he really knows what he's talking about. Obviously, he mentioned, I think, as well as Sir Alex, obviously he didn't mention anyone else, but I'm sure there's probably been other people that have been on the phone and given him advice and stuff of how to kind of approach things as a coach. It just blows my mind a little bit still, if I'm being honest, like, to think of that young boy that was once at Watford on loan to, I mean, even like, if you'd have said to me at the beginning of, like,
he was literally a player like last year.
Well, this is what I was just about to say. I've in my head, for some reason, I was thinking like 2 seasons, but it literally was last season. In August, at the end of August, we had that Burnley game, and he scored, and he got injured, and that was it for him, wasn't it?
Did he get injured in like the warm up of one of the games?
No. So he injured himself in scoring the goal against Burnley, and he was subbed from that. But then I think he was due to come back, and he injured himself then in the warm up, and I think that was then it for him.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it feels like so much of, like, because of us having so many managers and things, like, it just feels like an eternity ago. But in actual fact, it was only last. Yeah. Well, it wasn't last August. It was the season before. Yeah. But yeah, still not that long ago. And I know a lot of people. There has been a lot of mixed comments on it. A lot of people are. I'm really unsure about this. From a perspective of how much we loved him at the club as a player. People don't want him to fail, and then he'd be remembered in a bad way because, I'm not saying he's going to go that way, but, we could be in the bottom 3 in November, and everyone's like, he's been sat, he's only won 3 games. It's been horrendous. I don't think he's going to go that way at all. I think the fact that he's really young, I think the fact that he's got connections, I think that's going to help a lot. And I think we could get some good loan players potentially next season, maybe. So it's definitely an interesting time for us as a football club. Do you think there'll be many changes coach-wise, or do you think he'll try and keep the same coaching setup that he's got at the moment?
Not really sure. I mean, the coaching staff that came in with him for the end of this season were mainly just academy people and like the women's team. I think they'll try and bring in new people for that because, like, for me personally, I would want them to bring in not necessarily a completely new set of staff, just maybe, I don't know, people who have a bit more experience, people who can guide him. Like, I would like to see new people come in, and because they haven't announced it yet, it says it's being announced in like whenever in the future. That suggests that they probably are going to bring in new coaching staff, and Cleverley is probably thinking about, who have I worked with? Who will I know will be good? I think in his interviews he said, like, I've got loads of unfinished business. Like, he didn't want to retire when he retired. And he says that's what drives him forward. And he gets Watford. He is Watford. Like, he knows what it means to the fans, which means, for me, it proves that he's not going to give up. He's not going to one day just be like, well, the players are just not playing. Like, I'm giving up now. Like, I know that he's going to keep going, even if times are tough. And all I can hope is that the board just give him the reins. They'll say, who do you want? Like, here's the budget. And I also think Tom wouldn't have taken the job if the club had said, well, actually, you're going to have no control and we've got no money. So, because you're literally asking to, like, do badly. I really think his positivity is making me feel positive about what's going on behind closed doors. Obviously, it's Watford. We never know what's going on. But I feel like Cleverley isn't the type of guy to get himself in that position where things could go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I'm just calling it now on record, and this is recorded. So I am calling the re-signing of Ashley Young in the summer.
Actually, now,
I don't know why. As soon as they announced, I didn't put it in the chat earlier. I was just thought, I'll just drop it in tonight. There's just something, because Cleverley and because Tom and Ashley play together at United. Ashley's got the Watford connections. He's been struggling, although he's been starting for Everton. He's been struggling a little bit recently. I think he's not been as good as he has shown that he is over the years, the last few years anyway, at least. And I think maybe a drop in league is necessary. And we've there was whispers of it a little while ago, wasn't there? I think maybe was it 2 seasons ago, I think, before he made the move to Everton, that people suggested that it might happen.
Yeah.
I actually think it could now he's there. And I think that could be maybe a bit of experience. I'm not saying he's going to come in and he's going to start every week, but I think it could be interesting having someone like that around for experience, especially if he gets in some young players. He's obviously quite young himself, and who knows? It could actually work out if it was to happen. But that's my call for the summer. But just wrapping up, obviously we did a score prediction with Graham. What do you think the score will be at the weekend?
I'm going to go, I think we're going to win. I think this is it. Cleverley's manager, so obviously we heard from Graham, Sunderland they're not going to be playing for anything. He says, they've not scored a lot of goals in the last couple of games. I don't really think they're going to suddenly be up for it because they're playing us. I think we've got more to play for. I really want to win because I really don't want to be carrying this not one at home over to next season, because it's just not a good start. I think it will be great for Cleverley to sort of have a win, because the performances have been good. I'm not going to criticise anything, but we have drawn 5 games and I know they've been good draws, but I still think a win will be good for him, coming off the back of a 0-0. I think the win will be good. So I'm going to go 2-0. I think we're going to win 2-0.
Yeah, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win. Scorers?
I think Dennis and Rajovic.
Rajovic with a goal to finish. Nice. I think we're going to win. I'd love to think we're going to keep a clean sheet, and we are better at the back. But as Graham said, obviously Clark's been phenomenal this year for Sunderland, and Bellingham has been good as well. And I do think, while they've not been great this season, we do show at times that we're still poor, obviously, with that penalty we gave away at the weekend and stuff. So, I'm going to go for a win. I'm actually going to go 3-1 at the weekend. Yeah, 3-1. I think there's going to be a few goals this weekend. I think Bayo is going to score.
Mm-hmm.
I think Yasser might score, just because we're unsure about whether he's going to stay. That's going to be a really interesting one now. Obviously, with Tom staying, I do wonder whether the club might, how they were with Sarr, and kind of rejected bids, didn't they, for quite some time. It'd be interesting to see kind of who does for him in the summer, or if he does go. But I think Yasser will score. I think Bayo will score, and I think Dennis might score.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunderland, I don't know, maybe Clark will score to finish his time on the road with Sunderland off with a goal. But so thanks ever so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Obviously, remember to hit that like button if you're obviously watching, and please do hit the subscribe button as well. Obviously, we've hit the magic number 500 recently. We do want to keep pushing up. So please do hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and obviously you'll get notifications as to when we're going to be going live. I do believe we're probably going to be back at the weekend after the Sunderland game, reviewing the game. So do listen out for when we're going to do that. But thanks ever so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a great evening, and come on, you Horns.